Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inflectra's test automation series called Let's Test MS Dynamics Through the UI, where we will be exploring how to start testing MS Dynamics product you have. You are joining us for our second webinar in the series, and today's topic is how to test MS Dynamics AX through the UI like a pro. Today's webinar will be presented by Denis Markovtsev, a principal software developer at Inflectra Corporation. He is one of the creators of Rapise test automation platform. He holds a master's degree in computer science and Ph.D. in mathematics, and has been working in the IT industry for the past 20 years in areas such as compilers, development environments, software verification, and testing. My name is Teresa, and I'll be your moderator today. Before I turn it over to Denis, let's cover a few housekeeping issues. Today's webinar will last for about an hour and will consist of both theoretical and practical parts and end with a Q&A session. We ask that you save your questions until that time and use the built-in questions tab to send questions. These will then be read out and answered. Today's webinar will be recorded. In a couple of days, we'll make the webinar recording available on Inflectra's YouTube channel under the playlist called Testing MS Dynamics. Links to each webinar recording will be emailed to you in a few days after this live webinar. Or you can subscribe to Inflectra's YouTube channel to get notified when new recordings become available. To give you a little more information about the webinar series as a whole, Testing MS Dynamics is a five-part series focusing on testing the Microsoft Dynamics family of products with Rapise. During this five-part series, you will learn how to start testing the MS Dynamics products that you have. We will demonstrate how to bootstrap a testing framework and perform essential test automation tasks. Our presenters will also teach you how to organize teamwork and create tests that are easy to enhance and maintain. This series is running in parallel with our webinar series titled UI Automation 101. We suggest that UI series is an excellent companion to this MS Dynamics series. For those of you not familiar with our test automation webinars, we recommend that you check out our previous two We recommend that you check out our previous two series, Test Automation Demystified and Planet Test Automation First Steps, both of which are available on our YouTube channel. Last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, each webinar in the series has a practical part. We will demonstrate the key practical test automation concepts using Inflectra's own platform, Rapise. If you haven't downloaded the tool yet, please visit www.inflectra.com/Rapise. Feel free to use Inflectra's 30-day free trial. And with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to our presenter, Denis.
Thank you for the introduction, Teresa, and thanks everyone for joining today who found time in these hard times. And I wish everybody to stay safe. So we are beginning the session about testing Microsoft Dynamics AX. And here is the agenda for today. First of all, we are talking about testing Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 desktop client. And in this session, I will present the Dynamics testing framework that we created at Inflectra. I will show the architecture of this framework, how you can get it, and also I will implement a simple test and we'll add this test to this framework. So you will see how you can use it and how you can record and implement your own scenarios. So let's begin. Here is the framework. The framework is available on GitHub, and this framework actually complements support for Dynamics AX, which is available in Rapise. So Rapise itself supports various types of controls in Microsoft Dynamics AX, and the framework helps you to quickly start testing Dynamics and to do less preparation steps and to have working scenarios. So let me show you how you can find and use the framework we created. So first, let's go to GitHub. So I will show how to find the framework. First, we navigate to GitHub. Then we need to reach Inflectra GitHub channel. So /Inflectra. Here we have many repositories covering different things. And to find the framework for Dynamics IX, just type IX here. And here we have the framework filtered in the list, going into Rapise Dynamics IX. And to use this framework, you may either clone it using Git, or you may simply download it to your local machine. So I will show how you can download it. So just clicking download zip, and I can open it in the Windows Explorer right here. Here it is. Let's copy, and I will put it into Documents folder. So right clicking, hitting paste, and here is my framework. And I will use Rapise to open the framework very soon. Just a few more words about the framework itself. So this framework covers testing both desktop client and enterprise portal as well. And desktop and web client, enterprise portal is a web client for Dynamics IX. They are very different clients, and approach to testing is different for them. In this session, we will cover desktop client. So I'm going into desktop client here. If you will scroll down, you will see the description of the framework, how it is organized, and I will explain this in the session as well. And here you can see the list of some common functions that are available from this framework, and that you can use these functions in your tests. So there are functions that are used to launch Dynamics with a specific configuration pointing to a specific server in your network. You may close Dynamics. So there are many things that you don't need to record, and you may simply use them in RVL, in Rapise, out of the box. So there are functions to change the company, to open a specific module, perform navigation in the address bar of Dynamics, selecting the fast step, filtering the grid. So there are many of them. Okay, so I will minimize this. Here is the framework, and I will open it in Rapise. So let's see the next slide. This is the architecture of the framework that I will be presenting. The framework consists of the parent test, and this test contains subtests. Those subtests are implementing scenarios or test cases in this framework. So what we have here, the parent framework test, the parent test contains global object repository, so with some global objects that may be used by any test in the framework. And it also contains user.js with common functions. I already showed you described on GitHub. And each test case has its own RVL with test case steps. It has its own local object repository, and it references common functions from the parent test. And I will also show in the session how to put this framework into Spira, our test management tool, and how to define links between tests in the framework and test cases in Spira. So basically, the parent test defines a repository in Spira and is linked to a separate test case which is never executed. it is called framework here. And every individual test case is linked from Rapise to a test case in Spira. So this is a high-level overview of the architecture. And now I will show the demo. We will add a new test and we will clone a template test. We will implement initial navigation steps that you don't need to record. Also, we will record test specific to the scenario that we will be implementing. And then we will ensure that playback works. I will make this test data-driven. I will save it into Spira, and I will schedule and execute the test. So this is the plan for the demonstration today. So, just minimize the window. Sorry, here it is. So here is our framework. I'm going into desktop client and launching the parent test by double-clicking desktop client SS test on disk. So here is our framework, and here is what we have here. We have some additional files that you typically don't see in tests that you just create in Rapise. We have a data Excel file. So this is a file that contains data for every test case in the framework. For every test case, we have a separate sheet where you can define your data that will be used by test steps. There is also drop-downs Excel file. It defines some drop-downs for RVL. I will show how it works a bit later. And there is also output Excel file. It's currently not on disk because it will be created by test scenarios. So this is an Excel file that is used to store some values between test executions. So for example, if you need to specify different ID for a specific record every time, then you may store previous value in this output Excel file. So next time when you're running your test, you may read this value, increment it, and use the new ID. And it also may be used for some other things as well. And we'll use it in our test scenario as well. Okay, here we have 3 test cases already implemented out of the box. So you may try to run it or to run them if you have a demo instance of Dynamics IX. And here we have template test case. It is already pre-configured, and I will clone it to create a new test case in our framework. So right-clicking it and choosing clone. And our test scenario will be, we'll hire new worker and hitting OK. And here is this test case in the files view. So I can now open this test in Rapise. I may open it in the same copy of Rapise, or you may double click it and open in a separate copy of Rapise. But then you should be careful what copy of Rapise you're using to start recording. So to not mix things up, I will just open it from Rapise. So let's go to documents. Here is Alexei, we can hear you. Okay, and opening hire new worker. Okay, yes. And this is our empty test. I'm going to RVL. And you can see that it already has some steps here. There is a step that launches dynamics. So let's just run it and see what the step does. Okay, it does not work. So let me explain why it doesn't work. This test has already binding to Excel spreadsheet to read data. And as a sheet name, we have a template, and there is no such sheet in our data Excel file. So we need to fix this first. And we need to fix this because we see this error indicating that there is no such sheet template. So go into data Excel, hitting plus. So Rapise has built-in Excel editor. You don't need Microsoft Office on the machine to work with Excel files. So giving a name, hire new worker. So no data so far. And go into RVL and changing it to hire new worker. Hire new worker. Okay, and let's launch Dynamics. And this DEX launch function is smart, and it automatically waits for Dynamics to pop up and doesn't proceed to next steps. Okay, what we have else here? There is an action that can change the company. There are Dynamics may contain many companies. So if you will click in the bottom right corner, we can see the list of companies. If you want to run your test on a specific company, then you may change it. So here we will use, okay, here we see that company is already can be put into data Excel file. So let's create column company and we'll put name. I will use USSI company. And here in RVL, okay, we can launch it already. Place selection, and you will see how Rapise, changed the company to USSI. And you can see that we are in USSI company in the address bar of Dynamics client. Okay, what's next? The scenario I'm going to record is for human resources module. So first, let's ensure that this module is activated in Dynamics. And here is where drop-down Excel file helps us. So I can expand the drop-down here, and I can see all the modules available in Dynamics. So I need human resources. So let's run it. And Rapise makes sure that human resources module is checked in the list. And then we need to do navigation to the area that we want to test. So here in DEX navigate function, we need to specify the path to enter here into address bar. I don't remember this path exactly, so I will navigate to the area that we need manually. So we need workers, and clicking on address bar, and I need just the part without company name. So copying it into clipboard and go into Rapise and enter the value. So in Dynamics, let's go to some other area to see that our step works. So executing this one. Okay, we are all set and ready to record our testing scenario. that will create a new worker in the system. So I hit record. And now I will add a new worker, and Rapise will intercept all my actions. Clicking on Hire New Worker button on the toolbar, I will specify the name, John, the last name, and clicking somewhere else to commit the changes into the field. And now I'm clicking Hire New Worker button. You can see that my actions are intercepted. For this worker, I want to specify some additional information. I want to specify the address. So I am expanding address section, clicking on that button. For the address, I need to provide a name. So let it be work address. And the purpose, I am expanding the drop-down, selecting that it is business, setting the checkbox, clicking OK. You can see that Rapise recognizes that I am interacting with the grid, and I clicked on a couple of cells and Rapise remembered those cells. Let's now specify zip code. I will use zip code of our headquarters. Some fields are pre-populated. Let's specify street address. It is Georgia Avenue. Hitting OK. All right, so I think that we are ready to save, close our worker. Okay, and I will click Finish. And I can insert my steps at specific position. Insert here. And this is my scenario recorded. All the objects are in the object tree here to the left. You can see them here. And what I'm going to do next is we are going to run this test many times, and it will be always will be creating new workers in the system. So in some cases, you may need cleanup for the data that you are entering in the system. And our template is already pre-configured for that. So it has a line that place sheet with the name cleanup, and we have a sheet cleanup. It is empty, and the purpose of the sheet is to clean the data from the system. So let's record cleanup steps that remove the worker from the system that we just created. To find this worker, we need to filter this grid using this filter. And this is one more place where you don't need to do additional recording. We can use a function which is called dex filter grid. And we need to specify two parameters, the value to use for filtering. It is actually the name of the worker, and the field to use for filtering. So here we have may have several different fields, and we may specify what field to choose for filtering. I'm going to Rapise, and we will use name. Let's see how it works. I will just execute those two lines. Okay, and I need just a couple of more steps to delete this record from the system. I will start recording. Okay, clicking in the name column, and my worker is selected. Now I'm clicking on delete button, clicking on yes button, and hitting finish. And we have steps that clean up data in the system. Okay, and the last step in our test is calling function dex close. So it will close Dynamics. So running it, yeah. So let's execute our test to see if it works or we need to tweak it somehow. So hitting play on the toolbar. Changing the company, making sure that module is here, navigation. Okay, here we see that something is different when we are executing our test. The problem is that the worker that we created, it was registered in global address book, and now we are presented the choice that we already created such a worker. How do we want to proceed? Either we want to edit or merge with some record that we deleted previously. So here we need to record additional steps, probably. So I'm going to Rapise. So we did not found the address and the test failed. We need additional steps here. Where we need them? We need them here. After we are entering the last name and clicking on personal number, we may be prompted with such a box asking us what we want to do with the duplicate. So let's record additional steps. I will insert a couple of empty lines here. This is where we will put our new steps. Start recording. The window is not on the screen, so I will pause recording. We'll make sure that the window that we need is on the screen, and I will resume recording, and we'll click Add button. Okay, it seems we recorded what we want. Insert in here. So sometimes it means that sometimes when we are executing the test, this button may be available, sometimes may not be available. So this is why it is good to wrap this section into conditional, into if. So I'm choosing right selection into if. And our condition will be, we will check if this button is present on screen, then let's click on it. If not, then we may proceed with our test. So here I'm going to use global do wait for action. And as a condition, I will use output 1 is set. And the object is global. The action is do wait for. And the object for which we are waiting is add button. This is what we just recorded. By default, do it for waits for object for 10 seconds. Probably it's too long, so I will add the optional parameters. So I'm hitting those curly braces on the toolbar, and we don't need third parameter. And I will change default timeout to something like 2 seconds. To not wait too long for this object to appear, because it appears actually almost immediately. Okay, we are ready. Here Let's see what we have. We can cancel this. We can cancel this. Okay, and this is our worker. And actually, what we may do, we may continue execution of our test to see if the next steps are okay or not. The test failed on the clicking on address. So let's resume execution from this line. So I'm right-clicking the line that clicks on address and choosing play from here. Okay, something did not work again. Let's see. Okay, click in cell selected. Okay, we need to fix something here. Here we click on the checkbox, and Rapise recorded that we need to click on some empty value, but actually we need to click on line 0. So let's run from here, play from here. Now there is no grid anymore. I will need to run from some earlier location that expands the purpose. Play from here. Okay, what is here? Returned value false. Let's see. So we're here clicking in the row number 0. Okay, let's change the column to 0 as well. Playing from here again. Yeah, so now it works. So probably the column with checkbox cannot be found by name. Oh, this is our cleanup procedure, and dynamics is closed. So it looks like that everything is working. The next step is currently we have all our data hard-coded in RVL. And I'm going to do some parameterization and put more data into external spreadsheet. So to save time and to not parameterize everything, I will just put first name, last name into our data file. So here I will create first name, last name, and to do cleanup, we will need name. So the first name will be John Smith, and the full name is John Smith. Okay, so here is the data. I can make column names bold. Here, go into RVL, and to have fancy drop downs in the place where I will be doing parameterization, I need to define columns here at the top. So names of my columns are first name, last name, and name. If we need it here, start to parameterize. This is where we are entering first name. I am changing parameter type to data. What is data? Data is the name of my table. Here it is. And here using dropdown and choosing first name. For the last name, choosing last name. Do we have names anywhere else? No. And the last place where we need to use parameterized values is here in the cleanup. And on this sheet, we don't have binding to data file. So here is why we need to copy this preamble from the main RVL sheet. So I will put it here. And at the place where we do filtering, I will use name, name. And for clicking on the cell, I will use name as well. So now we have some parameterization and our data is in data Excel file. Okay, so let's execute our test to see how it works. And if it is successful, the next step will be to store some value that we will obtain from the application into output Excel file. Add button was clicked successfully. And the test works. At one point, I saw that clicking on Hire New Worker button did not work. It did not lead to opening the details box for the new worker. And yeah, I think that we need to duplicate one step here, the step that clicks on the button. So I will just duplicate it. Because when we click on that button, after that, we need to first move focus to the main window and then make another click and only in this case, the button will accept it. Okay, let's store some value that we obtain from the application. To do this, I will actually execute just part of my test. So let's proceed to here, to the details section. Okay. What we may want to obtain from this application, probably ID of the new worker that we create. Here we have this personnel number. So let's read it from the application. So I go to REL, where we can read it. Actually, we can read it right after we go to worker details. So I will add more lines here. And what I need to do, I need to capture this ID. So I will start recording. Pause recording to switch to the window that I need. And this is a personal number. I don't need any interaction with it, any clicks or anything like that. So I will just use learn feature of Rapise. I place mouse over the object, hitting Ctrl+2 on the keyboard, and this object is added to my local object repository. Okay, click in finish. And here we will read the value from this field. So it is a personal number. Okay, let's find it in the object tree. I want to make sure this is the personal number that we need. No, it was personal number from another dialog. It is now personal number 1. Okay, let's use this one. Number 1, it should be what we need. Slash. Yeah, that's right. And to get the text from this field, we need get text. And let's put this text into a variable, and then we can print the value of the variable to the report and put it into output Excel file. So I will define the variable at the top of my RVL spreadsheet. Variable, let's name it worker ID. And here we will just store the value of the section to this variable. So variable name is worker ID. And let's now print it. Tester has action message, and it can print variable worker ID. I can now execute these 3 lines. Okay, and here is the ID in the report. If you want to put it into output Excel file, we just need one more step here. There is a function which is called set output value. We just need to provide the name for the key of this value, worker ID, and the value is stored in the variable worker ID. Let's execute this part one more time. Play selection. And now if we will open this output Excel file, you can see that worker ID was successfully written to this Excel file. So if on next iteration we will need this number, we can read it. And we can read it using a function which is called get output value. So pretty simple. Okay, so we are one step from doing data management for our test management for our test framework. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save everything into Spira and schedule execution and see the results of execution in Spira. So let's close Dynamics. First, I need to return to my main test desktop client, and I need to save it first into Spira. But first, into Spira, I need to create a test case. So I'm going to Spira. Here I have a product that I will be using, and I'm going to test cases, and I will create 2 test cases here. One for the framework and another for a real test scenario. So first one will be framework, and another one for hire new workers scenario. So click and save, and now I'm ready to save my test to Spira. On the toolbar, I'm choosing Save to Spira. This is my product, and this is framework test case. Selecting it from the list and clicking Save, Synchronize. Create. It is creating repository. Okay, so Rapise shows the dialog with the files that needs to be uploaded to Spira. Default selection is okay, and I will hit OK. And Rapise sends everything to Spira. The data is stored in Documents module. in Spira. So when save procedure is completed, you may double check, navigate to Documents in Spira, and see that among the folders, you see the folder of the test framework with all the files. Okay, and we saved our framework. And now it's time to link our scenario with a real test case in Spira. So I'm going to recent test that we just created, hire new worker, and I will choose save to Spira again. And this time I'm choosing hire new worker from the list of test cases and choosing save synchronize. Okay, all files are already in Spira, so almost nothing to upload. So it will be much faster this time. So everything is now in Spira. If you want to double check that saving was successful, you may go to list of test cases. So self-checking. If you open the test case, click in the test case, and scrolling it down, here you can see the indicator that automation engine for this test case is Rapise, and you can see the name of Rapise test. So it means that linking with Rapise test was successful. So the next step is to do execution. To do execution, I need to create a test set. Create into test set. I will name it workers. And for the test set, I need to choose what test cases to execute. Go into the list of test cases, hitting add, hire new worker, saving the list. And two more steps. I need to choose where to execute and when to execute. On this machine that I'm using, I have Rapise launcher. This is a component of Rapise that is connected to Spira, and it indicates this machine to Spira using automation host token. In this case, it's IX 2012 R3. And here, where we are choosing where to execute, we will choose this token. And the next thing to do is to define when to execute. So I can define planned date. To execute it immediately, I will choose the date in the past. So the test is overdue and will be executed immediately. So saving. I can close Rapise actually. Here in Rapise launcher, we now can see that there is something from Spira. We should see it shortly. Yeah, so there is something from Spira to execute. So Rapise launcher downloaded all the files to local machine. So if you want to execute on another machine, you just configure Rapise launcher and it will download all the files from Spira and it will do execution. So right now execution is in progress. Yeah, we can see that it works pretty fast. Okay, filtering. I forgot to delete one. Okay, so execution completed successfully, and I may return to Spira. And here in the test run section, I may need to refresh this section. I can see the report, and this report indicates that everything was successful, and we can see the detailed steps that were executed. Okay, so here are the basics how you may do testing of dynamics using Rapise. So takeaways for this session is we have a framework. This framework is available on the GitHub. It's free if you are using Rapise. You may clone it and you may add your own test cases like I just showed in this session. So thank you for listening, and now we are opening for questions. If you have questions, you may write them into question section in GoToWebinar. Alexei, Teresa, do we have any questions already?
We actually have one, and it sounds as, can I fit test data from Excel file with many sheets? Also, can we use other formats such as CSV or MySQL as a data source? It's about data fitting to the application.
Very good question. The first part of this question is if we can use different sheets in Excel file, and the answer is yes. So when we are binding to Excel file, we specify the file name and we also specify the sheet name. And this is what we did when we created a new test case in the system. So we created a new sheet in Excel file and we specified the sheet here in Rapise test. The next part of the question was if can we use CSV files with Rapise? Yes, and this is easy to do, and usage of CSV files is transparent. So just specify the name of your CSV file here. The only requirement is that the extension of the CSV file must be CSV. It will indicate Rapise the format of the file, and it will load the data from CSV like it loads data from Excel files. And the third question was about database. And for the databases, we have a global object. So I'm now expanding it in the object tree on the left side on Rapise. And you may use it to attach to a database using ODBC driver. And Rapise may read data from database tables and iterate from through the records returned in the dataset and read the values from specific lines in this dataset. Yeah, so I hope that I answered this question. If you're interested more in data-driven testing with Rapise, so you may open a Rapise documentation website, rapisedoc.inflectra.com. You may do it using Rapise as well, so help, online help. And here we should have a section on data-driven testing. So it's one of the featured topics here. So let me magnify it, data-driven testing. And it shows you, has a link to tutorial, webinar recording, and on some data-driven test examples that are available on GitHub. So I hope I answered the question. Do we have more, Alexei?
I think that's all for today.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining, and I'm passing the word to Teresa.
Thank you so much, Denis, for today's presentation, and thanks, Alexei, for your assistance with the questions there. So we will send out an email in a couple of days with a link to the recording of this webinar. We hope that you'll join us for the next webinar in the series titled How to Test MS Dynamics 365 for Sales through the UI. That's scheduled for Wednesday, April 29th at 10 a.m. If you're interested in the companion UI Automation 101 series, Please plan to attend the next webinar, which would be drop-down controls, date pickers, and sliders, and that will be aired on April 15th at 10 a.m. But until then, thanks to Alexi and Dennis, and thanks for watching.